groovy. Well, seems fairly obvious. Oh, wait a minute. The words. Okay. Say the words. Klaatu, Barata, Netai, Nectar, Nickel. No, it's an N word. It's definitely an N word. It was definitely an N word. Klaatu, Barada. Okay then. That's it. Hey. Wait a minute. Hey, everything's cool. I said the words. I did. Whoa. Welcome back to my third annual Halloween special, and this time I'll be talking about Army of Darkness. Once again directed by Sam Raimi, and once again starring Bruce Campbell as the awesome Ash Williams. Now, when it comes to the Evil Dead movies, they're pretty important to me, mostly because I've always been a huge fan of Sam Raimi's work since his work on the Spider-Man trilogy that he did all the way from 2002 to 2007. I enjoy moments of Spider-Man 3. It's not exactly perfect. I mean, it does have its issues, but mostly when it comes to the first two Spider-Man movies, I really love those, and they have been important to me since my childhood. But I never really paid much of his attention. I never really paid much attention to his work on his horror work until I think around my teenage years. I think the first in this series that I watched was actually Army of Darkness. I think it was either Army of Darkness or possibly Evil Dead 2, because I know that I watched the original Evil Dead last, because I actually saw the remake in theaters and I regret seeing it. It does have some memorable kills, though. That's all I can say about the remake. It's got some pretty good kills, but not really nothing new to offer. But mostly, I really like this series, and I've always loved Army of Darkness, even though I don't really think it's perfect or anything. It does have its issues. I mean, mostly when it comes, I mean, I love its comedy, but it pushes the comedy up to 10, which is mostly what Sam Raimi was going for, and this was one of his first few big hits. I mean, sure, he had a lot of success with Evil Dead 1 and 2, and before making Army of Darkness, he had a lot of success with Darkman, so this was one of the few movies that also push up his status as a blockbuster film director. And I've always liked Army of Darkness, mostly because of Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams. And honestly, I cannot picture anybody else playing this character. He makes the character his own, and he owns this role, and he is perfect as this character. And honestly, I can't picture anybody else playing him. I mean, and honestly, it's almost hard to see Bruce Campbell as anybody else than Ash Williams. And I always loved his cameos in the Spider-Man trilogy. I mean, my favorite of his cameos in the trilogy was when he was the French Maitre d' in Spider-Man 3. And I also liked his moments as the theater usher in Spider-Man 2. But mostly when it comes to his work as Ash Williams in the Evil Dead franchise, he is amazing as this character. And honestly, can you picture anybody else playing Ash Williams other than Bruce Campbell, or see him in any other famous role other than this? No, you can't, because it's just Bruce Campbell is Ash Williams. That's all I have to say about that. Oh, and also, I wanted to apologize for this shelf that just recently. Uh, I mean, this. Uh, Technically, I'm just having some issues with this set. Right now, uh, either I'll probably have to get this fixed, or I'll have to possibly get a new shelf. So I wanted to get that out of the way right before I continue on with the video, because I love doing what I do, and I always feel like um, mostly I have like a certain point of view when it comes to certain things. I just felt like everything that I do just has to be 100% perfect. And whenever I feel like I don't have that thing that I need, I just feel like everything is just falling apart. I mean, that's the way that's just my point of view. I just wanted to get that out of the way right before I continue on with the video. So the film picks up right after the events of Evil Dead 2, and Ash has been thrown into 1300 AD and is now stuck there, so he has to retrieve the Necronomicon in order to get back home. So, mostly when it comes to the film in general, I mean, it does have its issues, mostly with its pacing and character development. Though, I mean, there is one thing that no one will ever have anything negative to say about, and that is Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams. He just owns every second he is on screen. Not only did he play Ash, but he plays an evil version of himself. It's just. And the levels of comedy, I mean, the moments of comedy throughout the movie, I mean, most of them work, some of them really don't. Um, One thing that I can also criticize the movie about is its lack of gore and violence. I mean, sure there is violence, but that it's not just like super bloody like the first two films were. I mean, especially the first film. I mean, it was a straight up gore fest, and Evil Dead 2, I mean, still had some of the gore, but not really too much of it. But really, when it comes to Army of Darkness, it's definitely the least bloodiest of the Evil Dead movies. In fact, Universal, who distributed Army of Darkness, didn't really want it to be called Evil Dead 3 because they really wanted Army of Darkness to stand out on its own. And I can understand why. And originally, they wanted to go for a PG-13 rating, but Sam Raimi wanted an R rating. And I'm pretty sure like a lot of the fans back then wanted an R rating as well, because it really suits the tone of the Evil Dead movies. And one thing that like some fans can criticize the film for is its lack of violence and its focus on humor. And that I can believe is understandable. I'm also like the film's recap of the events of the first two movies, where we see Ash and Linda go to the cabin. Ash discovers the Necronomicon Ex Mortis / the Book of the Dead. In case you don't know what the Necronomicon Ex Mortis is, and I'll just give you a little bit of info. It's a book that's bound in human flesh and inked in blood, and the book possesses the power to resurrect demons and summon the forces of darkness. And once a patches is recited from the Necronomicon, it unleashes this evil force, and once this evil spirit possesses humans, they become what are known as Deadites. So, now that I got that said, so it shows the events of Evil Dead 1 and 2. They show this quick shot of Linda being taken over by the evil force. We don't really see it fully in the recap. We just see the camera just rushing towards Linda, and then that does the same thing to Ash, and then it cuts to his hand getting possessed, and he has to, of course, cut it off with a chainsaw. And it's not as like graphic as it was in Evil Dead 2, because I mean, right before he does, it immediately just pans to Ash's face, and then it cuts to black, and then we see the vortex being open, and then it's pulls in the Delta and various other trees and everything, and also Ash. And speaking of the Delta, I don't think I mentioned this in my review for Evil Dead 1 and 2. The Delta appears in mostly every single one of Sam Raimi's movies, and it's even Uncle Ben's car and the first Spider-Man. And if any of you are Sam Raimi fans, you may like notice like it's exactly the same car. It even appears in Ash vs. Evil Dead. So yeah, and I love the upgrade that the Delta gets later on in Army of Darkness, which I will get to later in the video. It's pretty awesome, but very stupidly hilarious at the same time. If you recall the ending of Evil Dead 2, you might remember when Ash arrived in 1300 AD, he was at first going to be killed by a bunch of knights, but then they retreated because there was a harpy deadite about to arrive and kill them. But then Ash kills it with his boomstick, I mean, the nickname for a shotgun. And then the knights hail him as their savior, and then he screams in anguish because he's now trapped in the past. This film retcons that ending, but I mean, it follows, but it still shows us the events of Evil Dead 1 and 2, but mostly the events of Evil Dead 2, they don't, they mostly stick to Evil Dead 2. And I always loved Ash's reaction when he first arrives in the past, and when he just turns around and he's just like, where in the hell? that has always made me laugh. Ash is then captured by Lord Henry and his men, and he believes that he's in league with Duke Henry the Red, who Arthur is at war with, and he believes that Henry the Red is working with the Deadites. Of course, this is completely false. So they're taken back to Arthur's castle, and then they're one of Duke Henry's men is thrown into a pit, and then killed by a Deadite, and then we see this like geyser of blood just being just holy shit. It's the only that's the limited amount of gore that we get in this film. And we're introduced in this one scene to Sheila, who is played by what? It's also in this one scene where we're introduced to Sheila, who's played by Embeth Davidz. Now, back then as a kid, I always remembered her as Miss Honey from Matilda. And she also appeared in Schindler's List. And also, mostly when it comes to her performance in Army of Darkness, I think it's I think it's acceptable at the least. She's pretty good, and she's one of the few best love interests for Ash in the series. So when Ash is thrown into the pit, first he struggles against this Deadite. So until the wise man gives him his chainsaw, and then he kills the Deadite. And when he makes his way back up, I always love this one moment where he stands next to Arthur, and he's like, your shoelace is untied. And Arthur immediately looks at his shoes, and Ash sucker punches him, and he just immediately intimidates everybody. Just immediately being like, who wants some? Who's next? Huh? How about it? Who wants some? Who wants to have a little? You. You want some? Huh? You want a little? Do you? I've always loved Ash in this movie. I mean, the way he goes back and forth with his different personalities. I mean, at first, I mean, he could be a bit cowardly, and then he goes through a lot of changes in these movies. I mean, sure, I mean, he was a bit cowardly in the first film, but then part two made him the pop culture icon that we all know and love. And still in this movie, he's still the hero that we know and love from Evil Dead 2. And I just love everything about Ash in this movie. And they go so far as to give him one-liners in this movie. And we even get a Raiders of the Lost Ark reference where Lord Arthur tells some swords boy to give him his sword right after Ash tells Lord Arthur's man to let Henry go, and right when Arthur is about to get ready to fight Ash takes his shotgun and blows his sword apart, and gives my favorite line in the entire film. All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. You see this? This is my boomstick. And I love that line. It's even on my shirt. I mean, you've seen me wear this shirt dozens of times in various other videos. I mean, I just always love that line. And right when another Deadeye comes out of the pit, Ash immediately kills it with a shotgun, and everybody praise him as a hero. And even though he's like enjoying the hero status, but I mean, he has like a bunch of women just feeding him food, and he's just enjoying every second of it. And Sheila, who earlier accused Ash of murdering her brother, immediately tries to apologize to her. I always like how he's like, first you wanted to kill me, now you wanted to kiss me. Blow. So, right now his only concern is to get back home, and the wise man informs him that the only way that he can return home is if he retrieves the Necronomicon. And we get another action sequence where we see another Deadeye trying to kill everybody in the room. And we even get another one-liner from Ash. Yo, she bitch. Let's go. Though, I just think it's a little bit unbelievable for a Deadeye just to take a shotgun to a shotgun blast to the chest and then just fall dead. Because back then, Deadites could survive a damn decapitation. And it's just like, I knew maybe different rules. I get it. And I understand that they wanted a PG-13 rating, but I need more blood in my Evil Dead movies. That's just the one complaint that I have one of the few complaints that I have with this movie. And Ash decides to give himself an upgrade by making a robotic hand, and we get his famous catchphrase when he looks at his robotic hand. Groovy. Like I said, I love Ash in this movie, and right before he's about to leave, we get this one romantic moment between him and Sheila, and another one-liner from Ash. Give me some sugar, baby. And when it comes to the scene in the windmill, it's easily one of my favorite scenes in the film, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people would mostly say the same thing. When Ash smashes a mirror, we get like a bunch of mini Ashes popping out of the mirror shards, and they take a fork, and one of them yells, "Ramming speed!" And then they rush towards Ash with the fork and stab him in the ass. Jesus Christ. They stab him in the ass. Jesus Christ. I love most of the humor in this movie. It's mostly slapstick. It's pure slapstick. And that's one of the few things that I love about Army of Darkness. And the one moment I remember always making me laugh is right when Ash is trying to kill one of the many Ashes by stomping on him. And he accidentally ends up stepping on a nail. That always made me laugh, especially with that. Jesus Christ. God, I love this movie. So he falls to the floor and he's knocked unconscious, and the mini Ashes strap him down, and then one of them is forced down Ash's throat, and Ash immediately tries to force him out. I mean, he tries to kill the mini Ash by taking a hot pot of tea and just takes it down his throat like a champ, and it's steaming hot still. Okay, little fella. How about some hot chocolate, huh? I always loved that moment in the film. I mean, the humor in this film absolutely works, and they amp the humor up to 11 by having another Ash just grow out of Ash's body, and we even get a Three Stooges reference. Right when Ash pokes evil Ash in the eyes. Oh, I'm blind. And Sam Raimi is a huge fan of the Three Stooges, and it clearly shows. And right after getting bullied by the evil Ash a few times, going, little goody two shoes, little goody two shoes, little goody two shoes. Ash has had enough of this bullshit and takes a shotgun and then just blasts him away like 30, like at least like 20 feet away. And we get another one-liner. Good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun. And we even get a callback to the first Evil Dead, where, I mean, right when Ash was originally gonna dismember Linda with his chainsaw. This film, I mean, this moment homages that moment, but I mean, it's of course cut due to the Universal wanting originally wanting the PG-13 rating, but Sam Raimi wanted the R rating, but still, I mean, I still need more blood in my Evil Dead movies. Well, Evil Ash is not dead, and we'll get back to him later, so Ash goes to the cemetery where the Necronomicon is, and he finds 3 books. 3 books? Wait a minute. Hold it. Nobody said anything about 3 books. Like what am I supposed to do? Take 1 book? Or all books? Or what? So after opening up one of the Necronomicons, it opens up a vortex and immediately sucks Ash into the portal, but he of course gets out, and there's this amazing effect on his face, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, it always made me laugh. And when he goes for this the second book, it bites his hand, and then he just throws it away, and it keeps flying towards him and continues to torture him. And then he discovers the third one as the actual real Necronomicon. But he remembers that in order to remove the book safely, he has to recite the 3 words, Klaatu Barata Nikto. But he forgets the last word, so he has to bullshit his way out of it. I spoke to it earlier in my intro to this video. Klaatu Barata. Okay then. That's it. So he takes the book, and it, of course, summons the army of the dead. And I like how he's like, wait a minute, everything's cool. I said the words, I did. No, you didn't, Ash. You pulled a bullshit move. And I like how, I mean, they bring this back later towards almost the ending of the movie, and I'll get to that later. So Evil Ash is brought back from the dead, and Ash goes back to the castle, but then one of the Deadites kidnaps Sheila, and they bring him back to they bring her back to Evil Ash, and he says one of Ash's lines, "Give me some sugar, baby," and I'm like, who would ever want to make out with a rotting corpse? Oh wait, they did show that one moment in The Mummy Returns. Yeah. I remember that almost making me throw up. I mean, the one moment in The Mummy Returns. I mean, not Army of Darkness. But and then Sheila eventually becomes a Deadite. So when we get back to the castle, Ash, I mean, this is when he immediately steps into the role of leader. So he trains the people how to fight with spears and teaches them how to make gunpowder, which becomes useful in the final battle. And the every moment of the final battle is almost pure gold, especially the fight scene between Ash and Evil Ash. And right when he's turned reduced into a skeleton, I mean, the stop motion and makeup and costume work throughout the film is almost superb, and I especially love the makeup work done in this movie, and I can't really say too much about it because it's. I mean, the crew that worked on Evil Dead 2 as well as Army of Darkness, they were the same people who worked on. They did a lot of makeup work on The Walking Dead, and I love the confrontation between Ash and Evil Ash, and right when I mean, Evil Ash in his undead form, as well as when he's first appeared, is also played by Bruce Campbell. And once he's reduced to a skeleton, he's voiced by Sam Raimi. I don't know if anybody knows this, but this is actually true. When Evil Ash is in his skeleton form, he's voiced by Sam Raimi. And right when Ash kills Evil Ash by I mean, Evil Ash is on a catapult filled with gunpowder. Ash activates the catapult, and then he's like flown like dozens of feet away, and it explodes. And it's just like, oh Lord. That's always been a big cliche in movies, just seeing the main villain get blown up. I mean, that I can see like a lot of people loving, and immediately gets old after a few years. And Ash turning the Delta into this super lawnmower is just Jesus Christ. It's awesome, but also hilarious at the same time. I love the skeletons in this movie. I mean, mostly are done with practical effects, and most of the makeup work is really good. That is one of the few things that I really like about Army of Darkness, and honestly, they really hold up. And I mean, that's one of the few things I love about it. And I love how when the main theme plays right when the Army of Dead, the Army of the Dead arrive at the castle, we see one of the skeletons holding a bone and playing it like a flute. I always loved that for some reason. So I mean, as the final battle ensues, I mean, well, I already mentioned that Ash kills Evil Ash by flanking him into a catapult filled with explosives, and that eventually kills him. Sheila is, I mean, she's still possessed, but after Evil Ash is dead, she eventually reverts back to normal, and she has like a small reunion with Ash. Henry the Red also assists Ash and Arthur's men during the final battle, and honestly, there's also a deleted scene with Henry the Red. I mean, mostly involving Ash asking for his help, which I think is a scene that should have been left in, that would have added a little bit more character development. So after the final battle is over, the wise man says that the only way that Ash can return home is that he takes this potion and recites the words Klaatu Barata Nikto in order to return home. And even when he does return home, which I'll get to in a second, when he does return home, I mean, we even get a small cameo from Ted Raimi, who often appears in Sam Raimi's movies. I always loved Ted Raimi, especially in the Spider-Man trilogy, and I loved him as possessed Henrietta in Evil Dead 2. And he even asks Ash, "Did you say the words right this time?" And I like how he's like, "Well, maybe I didn't say every single little tiny little syllable, no, but basically I said them, yeah." Basically. So Ash says his final goodbyes to Sheila and the villagers. So he immediately gets back to his own time, and the ending of gives me. I like it and I don't like it at the same time. Sure, it's another great action sequence, and he gives out a few one-liners here and there, especially when he's fighting off the Esmar Deadite. Right when she says, "I'll swallow your soul," and Ash says, "Come get some," and he takes a Winchester rifle and just shoots it a whole bunch of times, and I'm just like, I can't really buy like a few gunshots to the chest would kill a Deadite, because once again, they couldn't survive. They could barely survive a decapitation. Just like, come on, I need that gore for my Evil Dead movies. And Ash takes a girl, and right before he kisses her, he gives his final one-liner in the film, "Hail to the king, baby." And then the movie ends. The score in this film by both Joe LaDuca, who composed the score throughout the entire trilogy, is amazing. And the main theme was composed by Danny Elfman, and I've always loved Danny Elfman ever since I first heard his main Batman theme from 1988. I was like 4 or 5 when I first watched the 1989 Batman. But when it comes to their music for Army of Darkness, I really like it, especially the main theme. I'm pretty sure most of you would be aware of the various cuts that were made. There's a lot of deleted scenes, and I've seen like a few of them on YouTube. And I would have to say that I like the opening scene a little. The original opening scene a little bit better, because it shows us a few more clips of Evil Dead 2, and the alternate ending, the original ending for the film, was a bit controversial for a little bit of people. And honestly, I like it and I don't like it at the same time. So if you're not unaware of the alternate ending, I'm going to talk about it in this video. So in this ending, Ash is given a potion, and he has to take certain types of, a limited amount of drops in order to return to his own time. It would put him in a deep sleep for years and years until he awakes in his own time. Of course, he miscounts the drops, and then he awakens in a post-apocalyptic future, and he's like, "I slept too long!" And honestly, that ending has real balls for me, that end it on a sour note like that. And the studio and some audiences, in retrospect, thought that the movie was too dark. And that was actually the point. That, they wanted to, have... Ash is an idiot at heart, and it would make sense that he would do something like that, unintentionally, of course, and having Ash in a post-apocalyptic future honestly seems like a really interesting idea, and they even teased that at the ending of Ash vs. Evil Dead on its 3rd season, and honestly, I really wanted to see where they were going to go with that, but no, they decided to cancel it after its 3rd season, and that really pissed me off. But despite some stellar box office numbers, critics at the time were pretty mixed on the movie, but still, it was highly deserving of its cult status. I still like Army of Darkness, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people do too. And after that, fans have been begging for a 4th movie for years. Sure, there have always... before we got Ash vs. Evil Dead, we've gotten, several video games. I played one of them. I think it was... I wasn't really too sure of which one it was, but I remember having a lot of fun with one of the games. And, of course, there have been countless crossovers with Ash in comic books. We see Ash fight against Darkman, Xenia Warrior Princess, Marvel Zombies, and eventually Freddy and Jason. And honestly, if they had made a movie with Ash against Freddy and Jason, I would pay good money to see that. I'm like, yes, I would definitely want to see that on the big screen. But after countless requests from fans, we eventually got Ash vs. Evil Dead 5 years ago. And I have been a huge fan of the show, and I was so pissed that it canceled it after its third season. And I'm just like, come on, just give us at least one more season. I need that. So I do enjoy Army of Darkness, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people will. But the movie does have its problems, mostly with its lacking of violence, as well as some supporting characters, as well as some character developments. I mean, it has a lack of character development, but mostly the film is mostly centered around Ash. But it's entertaining as hell, and I love it for that reason alone. So I'm going to give Army of Darkness a B+. If you have not seen Army of Darkness, watch Army of Darkness. You'll have a hell of a time. Thank you so much, as always, for continuing to support my channel, and I'm looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new movies, of course, you know where to find me.